Hare Krishna. So, we welcome you all to this reading session on Krishna book, chapter 2. We will cover this chapter in three parts today, tomorrow, and day after. We would also like to thank all of you for participating so enthusiastically in the yesterday's quiz. We have received a few feedbacks from participants about a few problems that they faced during the exam. Therefore, we will share a video tomorrow morning where we will discuss all the chapter 1 quiz questions and also try to help you understand how can you resolve the problems that you faced during the exam. So let's begin our today's session. One more request we wish to make, that kindly please don't send messages or call on the numbers which are used for posting messages. They are personal numbers. We have shared an email ID with you, krishnabookquiz@gmail.com, which is the name of our channel also. Please write us a mail. We assure you that we will revert back to you within 24 hours. So let's begin today's session by chanting this prayer. Krishna, 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 He. Krishna, 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 He. Krishna, 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 Rakshamam. Krishna, 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 Pahimam. Ram Raghava, Ram Raghava, Ram Raghava, Rakshamam. Krishna Keshav, Krishna Keshav, Krishna Keshav, Pahimam. So, now we will recite the Pranam mantra of Srila Prabhupada. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. So, let's begin our chapter 2. The title of the chapter is Prayers by the Demigods for Lord Krishna in the Womb. We already know that Kamsa, after Narad Muni's visit, had imprisoned his own father, Ugrasen, occupied the kingdom of Shursen, and had put both Devaki and Vasudev in the prison. So let's continue. King Kamsa not only occupied the kingdoms of Yadu, Bhoj, and Andhak dynasties and the kingdom of Shurasen, but he also made alliances with all the other demoniac kings as follows: the demon Pralamba, the demon Baka, the demon Chanur, demon Trinavrat, demon Aghasur, demon Mushtik, demon Arishta, demon Divida, demon Putana, demon Keshi, and demon Dhenuka. So as we read Krishna book, all these characters will appear gradually. At that time, Jarasandh was the king of Magad province, known at present as the Bihar state. Thus, by his diplomatic policy, Kamsa consolidated the most powerful kingdom of his time under the protection of Jarasandh. Actually, Jarasandh was the father-in-law of Kamsa. Kamsa had married two daughters of Jarasandh, and therefore Jarasandh was protecting Kamsa's empire. He made further alliances with such kings such as Banasur and Bhaumasur until he was the strongest. Then he began to behave most inimically towards the Yadu dynasty into which Krishna was to take his birth. Being harassed by Kamsa, the kings of the Yadu, Bhoj, and Andhak dynasties began to take shelter in different states such as the state of Kurus, the state of Panchals, the state known as Kekai, Shalv, Vidarbh, Nishad, Videha, and Koshal. Kamsa broke the solidarity of the Yadu kingdom as well as the Bhoj and the Andhak. He made his position the most solid within the vast tract of land known at that time as Bharatvarsha. When Kamsa was killing the babies of Devaki and Vasudev one after another, many friends and relatives of Kamsa approached him and requested him to discontinue these heinous activities, but all of them became worshippers of Kamsa. So Kamsa had killed seven babies of Devaki and Vasudev, and many people approached him, but he was so powerful and so atrocious that people feared him, and later on they became worshippers of Kamsa. When Devaki became pregnant for the seventh time, a plenary expansion of Krishna known as Ananta appeared within her womb. Devaki was overwhelmed with both jubilation and lamentation. She was joyful, for she could understand that Lord Vishnu had taken shelter within her womb. But at the same time she was sorry that as soon as her child would come out, Kamsa would kill him. At that time, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, being compassionate upon the Yadus who were fearful due to the atrocities committed by Kamsa, ordered the appearance of Yogamaya, his internal potency. Krishna is the Lord of the universe, but he is especially the Lord of the Yadu dynasty. Yogamaya is the principal potency of the personality of Godhead. In the Vedas, it is said that the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has multi-potencies. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. All the different potencies are acting externally and internally, and Yogamaya is the chief of all potencies. The Lord ordered the appearance of Yogamaya in the land of Vrajabhumi in Vrindavan, which is always decorated and filled with beautiful cows. In Vrindavan, Rohini, one of the wives of Vasudev, was residing at the house of King Nanda and Queen Yashoda. Not only Rohini, but many others in the Yadu dynasty were scattered all over the country due to their fear of the atrocities of Kamsa. Some of them were even living in the caves of mountains. So, what have we read till now? That Kansa had already killed seven babies of Devaki and Vasudev, and the seventh time a plenary expansion of Krishna that is known as Ananta had appeared in her womb. So Devaki was happy as well as she was feeling bad because she knew that Kamsa will kill the child after it was born. So therefore now Lord called his chief potency, that is Yogamaya, and gave her an order that she should appear in the land of Brajbhumi in Vrindavan. And she also told him that in Vrindavan, Rohini, who was the wife of Vasudev, was living under the protection of Maharaj Nanda. The Lord thus informed Yogamaya, under the imprisonment of Kamsa are Devaki and Vasudev, and at the present moment my plenary expansion Shesha, that is Ananta Shesha, is within the womb of Devaki. You can arrange the transfer of Shesha from the womb of Devaki to the womb of Rohini. After this arrangement, I am personally going to appear in the womb of Devaki with my full potencies. Then I shall appear as the son of Devaki and Vasudev, and you shall appear as the daughter of Nand and Yashoda in Vrindavan. So he gave three orders, right? What is the first one? That now my plenary expansion Shesha is in the womb of Devaki, so you transfer him to the womb of Rohini. Then I will myself appear in the womb of Devaki. And the third thing, that now you appear as the daughter of Nand and Nand and Yashoda in Vrindavan. Since you will appear as my contemporary sister, since you will quickly satisfy desires for sense gratification, people within the world will worship you with all kinds of valuable presentations, incense, candles, flowers, and offerings of sacrifice. people who are after materialistic perfection will worship you under different forms of your expansion, which will be named Durga, Bhadrakali, Vijaya, Vaishnavi, Kumuda, Chandika, Krishna. It's not Krishna, it is Krishna, Madhavi, Kanyaka, Maya, Narayani, Ishani, Sharada, and Ambika. Krishna and Yogamaya appeared as brother and sister, the supreme powerful and the supreme power. Although there is no clear distinction between the powerful and the power, power is always subordinate to the powerful. Those who are materialistic and those who are materialistic are worshippers of the power, but those who are transcendentalists are worshippers of the powerful. Krishna is the supreme powerful and Durga is the supreme power within the material world. Actually, people in the Vedic culture worship both the powerful and the power. There are many hundreds and thousands of temples of Vishnu and Devi, and sometimes they are worshipped simultaneously. The worshipper of the power, Durga, or the external energy of Krishna may achieve all kinds of material success very easily, but anyone who wants to be elevated transcendentally must engage in worshipping the powerful in Krishna consciousness. So, what is being told over here that Lord Krishna gave an instruction to Yogamaya, his potency, external potency, his potency to appear as daughter of Nanda and Yashoda, and then he also tells Yogamaya that the people who are after material enjoyment they will worship you, but those who want to uh, advance in spiritual life, transcendental life, should will worship Lord Krishna. So, one thing we need to understand is that respecting all energies of the Lord is not bad. Even if we pray to Goddess Durga, we should not ask for material benefits, but we should rather ask her for the bhakti, for the desire to worship the Supreme Lord, because she is the potency of the Lord. So Lord Krishna has made it very clear that uh, thousands of temples of Vishnu and Devi are there, and they are worshipped simultaneously. And for the best example we can see about it is the Jagannath temple in Puri, where Bimla Devi, who is goddess Durga, is also worshipped, as well as Lord Jagannath, who is the presiding deity of that temple, is also worshipped. And whatever offerings, food offerings are made to Lord Jagannath, they immediately after offering to Lord Jagannath go to Bimla Devi, and after it is honored by Bimla Devi, it is distributed to the normal public. The Lord also declared to Yogamaya, my plenary expansion Anantashesha is within the womb of Devaki. On account of being forcibly attracted to the womb of Rohini, he will be known as Sankarshan and will be the source of all spiritual power or bal, by which one can attain the highest bliss of life, which is called Raman. Therefore, the plenary portion Ananta will be known after his appearance either as Sankarshan or as Balaram. So we get here the names of Ananta Shesha. What is that? One is Sankarshan, because this comes from the word Akarshan. So he will be forcibly attracted to the womb of Rohini. That's why he will be called Sankarshan, and he will be the source of all spiritual power or bal. So therefore, and he can provide by which one can attain the highest bliss of life, which is called Raman. That's why his name will also be Balaram. So Prabhupada will explain ahead what Balaram exactly in detail means. In the Upanishads, it is said that Nayam Atma Balen Balhinena Labhya. The purport is that one cannot attain the supreme platform of self-realization without being sufficiently favored by Balaram. Bal does not mean physical strength. No one can attain spiritual perfection by physical strength. One must have the spiritual strength which is infused by Balaram or Sankarshan. Ananta or Shesha is the source of the power which sustains all the planets in their different positions. Materially, this sustaining power is known as the law of gravitation, but actually it is the display of the potency of Sankarshan. Balaram or Sankarshan is the source of spiritual power or the original spiritual master. Therefore, Lord Nityananda Prabhu, who is also the incarnation of Balaram, is the original spiritual master, and the spiritual master is the representative of Balaram, the form of Supreme Personality of Godhead who supplies spiritual strength. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is confirmed that the spiritual master is the manifestation of the mercy of Krishna. So Prabhupada is clarifying very clearly over here that Balaram does not mean, the Bal does not mean uh, physical strength, but it rather refers to spiritual strength. And Lord Balaram is actually the original spiritual master, the Adi Guru, and the spiritual master is a representative of Balramji. So the original spiritual master is Balramji, and the spiritual master who is present before our manifest eyes, he is the representative of Balaramji. And it's also confirmed in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita that the Guru or the spiritual master is the manifestation of the mercy of Krishna. Thus ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Yogamaya circumambulated the Lord and then appeared within this material world according to his order. When Yogamaya, the supreme power of the Supreme Powerful Personality of Godhead, transferred Lord Shesha from the womb of Devaki to the womb of Rohini, both Devaki and Rohini were under Yogamaya's spell, which is called Yog Nidra. When this was done, people thought that Devaki's seventh pregnancy had been a miscarriage. Thus, although Balaram appeared as the son of Devaki, he was transferred to the womb of Rohini to appear as her son. After this arrangement, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, who is always ready to protect his unalloyed devotees, entered within the mind of Vasudev as the Lord of the whole creation, with full inconceivable potencies. It is understood in this connection that Lord Krishna first of all situated himself in the unalloyed heart of Vasudev and then was transferred to the heart of Devaki. So here uh, it is being told that Lord Krishna appeared after Yogamaya had transferred Balramji to the womb of Rohini Devi. And when this was happening, both of them were under the spell of Yogamaya, that is called the Yog Nidra. And people thought that Devaki's seventh pregnancy was a miscarriage. So now Lord Krishna first came to the heart of Vasudev and then he transferred himself to the heart of Devaki. He was not put into the womb of Devaki by seminal discharge. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his inconceivable potency, can appear in any way. It is not necessary for him to appear in the ordinary way by seminal injection within the womb of a woman. So Lord Krishna is Yogeshwaraha and he is not obliged to appear in the way a normal human being or a normal living entity is born. So when Vasudev was sustaining the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, he appeared just like the glowing sun, whose shining rays are always unbearable and scorching to the common man. The form of the Lord, situated in the pure unalloyed heart of Vasudev, is not different from the original form of Krishna. The appearance of the form of Krishna anywhere and specifically within the heart is called Dham. It's called Dham. Dham refers not only to Krishna's form but also to his name, his qualities, and his paraphernalia. Everything becomes manifest simultaneously. So it's being told that Vasudev's heart is this place becomes Dham because when Krishna appears at some place, then that whole place becomes Dhama or the a purified place where Lord Krishna's not only his form but his name, his qualities, his paraphernalia, everything become manifest simultaneously. Thus, the eternal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, with full potencies, were transferred from the mind of Vasudeva to the mind of Devaki, exactly as the setting sun's rays are transferred to the full moon rising in the east. So, here the word heart and mind have been used back and forth. We should understand it the same, that you can either understand it as heart or mind, it's considered to be the same thing. Different words have been used, but it refers to the same thing. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thus entered the body of Devaki from the body of Vasudeva without being subjected to any of the conditions of an ordinary living entity. Since Krishna was there, it is to be understood that all his plenary expansions, just like Narayan, and incarnations like Lord Nrsimha and Varaha, were with him, and they also were not subject to the conditions of material existence. In this way, Devaki became the residence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one who is one without a second, means he is unparalleled, and the cause of all creation. Devaki became the residence of the Absolute Truth, but because she was confined within the house of Kamsa, she looked just like a suppressed fire, or like misused education. When fire is kept in a jug, the illuminating rays of the fire cannot be very much appreciated. Similarly, misused knowledge which does not benefit the people in general is not very much appreciated. So Devaki was kept within the prison walls of Kamsa's palace, and no one could see her transcendental beauty, which resulted from her conceiving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we understand from here that when Lord Krishna was present in Vasudeva's heart, he was glowing like sun, and when Devaki became the place of residence for Lord, then Devaki was glowing. And here two examples have been cited, that since Devaki was within the prison walls, she was just like a suppressed fire. Means when fire is kept in a pot or a jug, we cannot actually realize how powerful that uh, fire is, or it's just like misused education, an education or knowledge which is not utilized for the benefit of people is cannot be appreciated much, right? So since Devaki was in the prison, not everybody could appreciate that why she was so beautiful. Kamsa, however, saw the transcendental beauty of his sister Devaki, and he at once concluded that the Supreme Personality of Godhead had taken shelter in her womb. She had never before looked so wonderfully beautiful. She could distinctly understand that there was something wonderful within the womb of Devaki. In this way, Kamsa became perturbed because he was sure that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who would kill him in the future, had now come. Kamsa began to think, what is to be done with Devaki? Surely she has Vishnu or Krishna within her womb, so it is certain that Krishna has come to execute the mission of the demigods. And even if I immediately kill Devaki, his mission cannot be frustrated. So now Kamsa has understood that Devaki is pregnant and Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna is in her womb. So now he is deliberating, he is thinking that what should I exactly do? Should I kill her? And he is talking to himself. Kamsa knew very well that no one can frustrate the purpose of Vishnu. Any intelligent man can understand that the laws of God cannot be violated. His purpose will be served in spite of all impediments offered by the demons. Kamsa thought, if I kill Devaki at the present moment, Vishnu will enforce his supreme will more vehemently. To kill Devaki just now would be a most abominable act. Now, no one desires to kill his reputation, even in an awkward situation. If I kill Devaki now, my reputation will be spoiled. Devaki is a woman, and she is under my shelter. She is pregnant, and if I kill her, immediately my reputation, the results of my pious activities, and my duration of life will all be finished. So Kansa is thinking that Devaki is a woman and she is pregnant and she is under my shelter. If I kill her now, my reputation, my result of my pious activities and my duration of life. Everything will be finished. So he is thinking over this. He further deliberated, a person who is too cruel is as good as dead, even in this lifetime. No one likes a cruel person during his lifetime, and after his death, people curse him. On account of his self-identification with the body, he must be degraded and pushed into the darkest region of hell. Kansa thus meditated on all the pros and cons of killing Devaki at that time. Kamsa finally decided not to kill Devaki right away, but to wait for the inevitable future. So Kansa made up his mind that I will not kill Devaki, but his mind became absorbed in animosity against the personality of Godhead. He patiently waited for the delivery of the child, expecting to kill him as he had done previously with the other babies of Devaki. Thus, being merged in the ocean of animosity against the personality of Godhead, he began to think of Krishna or Vishnu while sitting, while sleeping, while walking, while eating, while working, in all the situations of his life. His mind became so much absorbed with the thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that indirectly he could see only Krishna or Vishnu around him. Unfortunately, although his mind was so absorbed in the thought of Vishnu, he is not recognized as a devotee because he was thinking of Krishna as an enemy. The state of mind of a great devotee is also to be always absorbed in Krishna, but a devotee thinks of him favorably, not unfavorably. To think of Krishna favorably is Krishna consciousness, but to think of Krishna unfavorably is not Krishna consciousness. So, Kansa was so much terrified by the appearance of Lord Krishna in the heart of Devaki that he was constantly thinking about Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu. We also know that this is also our goal of bhakti. This is also the purpose which we are, this is the goal that we are aspiring for, that we should always remain conscious of God. We can remember him constantly, as Lord Krishna tells to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, that you remember me, mam anusmare yudhyacha. You keep doing your duties, but you simultaneously you keep remembering me too. Therefore, Kansa was also in that state. He was constantly, while sitting, moving, every activity he was doing, he was simply thinking about Lord, but with a heart of animosity. So, Srila Prabhupada is telling that we also have the same goal, but this is not Krishna consciousness. This is not Krishna bhakti. Kansa was thinking about Krishna in not a favorable way, but in a bad or in an unfavorable way. So, what is true Krishna consciousness? True Krishna consciousness is to think of Krishna favorably, right? So we have covered this chapter till this point. So we would like to stop our discussion at this juncture, and we also wanted to communicate a very small information that the next test is on 28th of June, Sunday, at 8:30, 9:15 p.m. on chapter number 2. Today we completed the part 1 of chapter 2. This chapter will be covered in 3 parts, and we also wanted to communicate that we organize Mangala Aarti every day morning at 5:15 a.m. to 5:45 a.m. If you are already attending Mangala Aarti on the YouTube channels or anywhere from any ISKCON temple, that's wonderful. But if somebody is not doing so, this information is for them. You can join us. The links will be shared on your WhatsApp groups. So thank you very much, and we apologize for the Hindi version. Little sound was less, so we will post another video with proper volume. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.